And so, without any further ado, let's cue the music and start that word chat.
Hello and welcome to that word chat. Wonderful to see you all again. It's another Tuesday, 2 weeks since the last time. Seems forever, but we can't really, if we could do this every week or twice a week, we would, but it's great to do it when we can. Today we have Carol Saller, who many of you are very familiar with. I guess I could say she needs no introduction, but I'll introduce her anyway. She's contributing editor to the Chicago Manual of Style. She told me she was retired, so I'm going to ask her what that's about. She's active writer in blogging, and she's a young adult novel out a few years ago that we're going to talk about. She's a well-known name, face, and voice among copy editors everywhere. Carol, welcome. Wonderful to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you too, Mark. It's too bad, we didn't meet at ACES, but this is maybe the next best thing.
Yeah, maybe you said your conference days are sort of over, but maybe we can get you to figure out a way to convince you to go to Atlanta if it's safe to go to Atlanta in the spring. And I've seen after Atlanta is San Antonio, but then after San Antonio is Columbus, Ohio. So you can come here to my house.
Okay. Well, that's an invitation I could never refuse.
There you go. I keep coming to Chicago. I mean, how many times have I been to Chicago?
That's ideal. That's ideal. If everyone can come to Chicago, that just makes it really easy. And when ACES was in Chicago, I did sneak in for a day just to say hey to everyone. But I really am retired from editing, and in fact, I haven't actively edited for 5 years now.
Really?
Yeah, because
so you haven't been retired for 5 years.
No, but in 2014, I left the manuscript editing department at the University of Chicago and moved into the marketing department.
Right.
And I went to half-time as a sort of transition to retirement. I wanted to, I've always wanted to be a writer, a full-time writer. So I thought, let's try half-time writer and see how that goes. And then I got really involved in, at the time there was no one in the marketing department at UC Press who was an expert on the manual. They were experts in marketing. So I pitched them a job. I created the job for myself to have a more focused promotion editor to editor. And that was when we started attending and sponsoring ACES and other editing conferences. And I started the blog and just we started the merchandise store and a raft of other initiatives. A lot of the work I did was also for students connected with Turabian, trying to rebrand so that people associated Turabian's style manual with Chicago style. And of course, Russell Harper was instrumental in, because he was the principal reviser of both books, he was instrumental over the last 10 years in merging those until they are compatible, completely compatible. And Turabian is another part of Chicago style. So that was, I did a lot of work that I was really happy to do. When the 17th edition came out, I was kind of the spokesperson for that. But, at some point, I just thought, time's running out. I want to do this writing thing, and it had been a long time since I'd had time to focus on writing another children's book. So, it's been working well.
One quick question. I always thought Turabian was Chicago style, sort of, just the bits that you needed for doing your term paper, I guess. Can you explain the difference? I mean, you said now they're entirely compatible, but they didn't used to be compatible.
No, they've been largely compatible, but no, they got their starts from different places. Kate Turabian was the dissertation secretary sometime, I don't know, in the 1940s or something, and she created a dissertation style that didn't match the manual of style in all ways, but the main difference is that you basically hit on it. Turabian is for works that are not going to be published. The point of them is the largest part of Turabian now is actually a bunch of advice written by subsequent editors, not by Kate Turabian herself, on coming up with an idea, how you test your hypothesis, how you put together a paper. The manual of style assumes you're a professional writer polishing for publication. And it's just a completely different approach to the student school paper and the writing for publication.
Okay. So now that we've got that figured out, let's get back to you and your. So you have Eddie's War, published a bunch of years ago, a young adult novel, and so you've been writing since then for the past 5 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been writing really for the past 40 years, and I have published several other children's books, but they're even, longer ago, and for much younger children, both fiction and nonfiction, picture books, biography, whatever. But I wanted to focus on literary fiction. And yeah, I've been cranking it out. I have gotten myself into a pickle in having finished 2 middle grade novels kind of simultaneously. One took me 6 years and the other took me 2 years. And with sending them out to my, writer friends and to a beta reader and whatever, I finished 2 at the same time. And so now I really need to find, and I need to sell them. And that's the part I just hate. I mean, I just hate it. I just don't want to do it. And so I'm sort of looking for an agent. And I've made a few efforts in that direction, very tentative ones that just got me completely smacked down, radio silence, form letter rejections, I just put those books in a drawer. Okay, done with those. No point at all. And so I've started writing another one, and it's going great. And I do think that I'm going to try harder. I'm going to an agent fest in November where I can pitch everything. I do think that the 2 novels in the drawer are not what people want to buy right now. They're not looking for quiet historical novels. The one I'm writing now.
Quiet sounds good right now, but.
Oh, well, whatever. I keep, I look at Publishers Weekly and what the deals are and what they're buying, and it's not what I'm writing, except now. What they want, what's really hot, fantasy is big.
I thought that was dying out.
No, it's not dying. Okay. No, it's absolutely not done. It's still really hot. I'm not interested in fantasy. I've read some wonderful fantasy novels, but it's not what I choose to read, and it's not what I choose to write, except for one category. And when I remembered that there was this one category of fantasy that I loved. I just jumped on it. So I love time travel. And so that's what I'm sending my little 11-year-olds, you know, they get hold of a time machine and off we go.
Oh, all right. So there's a little bit of history still. Do they go back or forward in time?
Well, in book one, they go to the 1970s, which for some of us might not seem all that long ago. Right. But for my little girls, you know, it's ancient history to them. And I'm having a blast in 1970, which I actually do recall from personal experience, although everything has to be researched, every single thing. I don't trust my memory on anything other than maybe some ill-advised clothing choices and the hairstyles of, you know, my, especially my male friends. It's really fun on, you know, just Googling the most bizarre, obscure things. And I'm setting it in Chicago, so that's fun. I've been reading a lot about Piper's Alley, which I don't know how many people have been in Chicago. Piper's Alley now is not what Piper's Alley in the 70s was. And it was, that's just Google it. You'll have a good time reading about that. Yeah.
Okay. And is that, so that's the next thing you mentioned, the time travel thing. That's the next thing we can look for is this, girls.
It'll probably go in the drawer too. Yeah. I don't know if, yeah.
Well, you've been around the world of publishing. I mean, university press, of course, but do you feel like you understand the system? And you know, I would think you would say, "Hey, it's Carol Saller. I've got a book," and somebody would say, "Oh,
no,
yeah, I'll represent you."
No, not at all. Yeah, I do understand the system, and I understand why. I have no standing in the world of children's books. Eddie's War was, you know, a critical success, but it didn't sell any copies. And any agent who's going to consider me is going to look at my track record and be completely unimpressed. They have to make money. You know, they aren't interested in something like Eddie's War. So I get it. I think it's going to be hard for me. And, you know, at some point I'll have to decide whether self-publishing is an option. I don't want to go that route because I don't enjoy the promotion. Other people really enjoy that kind of thing. And they're the ones who I also don't, to be really successful in self-publishing, you need to write in series and, you know, keep all those balls in the air. And yeah, it doesn't appeal to me. So
yeah, the time travel thing is a means to an end. And
yeah, it is. I'm hoping that it'll be appealing. It's really fun to write. And I'm hoping it'll be appealing, and that if I can get an agent, then they'll look at my other stuff. So we'll see. I don't consider any of it wasted time. It's all practice. The only way to get really, and I'm writing so much faster now. Eddie's War, I averaged 11 words a day. I figured that out once. And now I'm writing, you know, between 500 and 1,000 a day. And on a good day, I think 1,500 is where I top out. I can't do any more than that. But yeah, I'm cranking it out. This novel, I will have drafted in three and a half months. If I make my deadline.
If you keep going, yeah.
Agent Fest is my deadline.
Yeah, where is Agent Fest? What is it? Is it online or is it?
Well, it is online. It would be in Indianapolis. Oh no, Muncie, Midwest Writers. Yeah, they do an excellent writers workshop.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been writing. What's your deal? Are you a morning writer, an evening writer?
Mostly morning. Yeah.
do you get up and write, or do you
No, I sleep late and
routine?
write.
Yeah. Okay. So what? So you're in Chicago. You're in a city. We've got this pandemic going on. You're retired. What have you? What are you doing with your time? Have you taken a banjo yet, or? Um,
Oh, no, not banjo. I've been teaching myself to tap dance.
Really? All
Yeah.
right. So, well, and we'll give you a little bit of warning, but about 10 or 15 minutes, like a break in the middle of the show, you can back up, put on your tap shoes, and do a little.
I
Uh,
think I think not, that would
yeah.
maybe be that I missed my chance. It would have been great at some, Aces talent show auction type thing, but yeah, no,
That's,
it's
yeah.
funny. Being isolated isn't that different from being retired. I'm surprised. Last year I was going to a lot of theater, and I
Mhm.
haven't been to the theater, since January probably, and I really don't miss it. I find that I'm tolerating the isolation pretty well. And then I do a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot of Zooming, because when I say that, someone else will tell me how much they're doing, and I realize, I'm a piker. I don't do that much. But yeah, I have my volunteer work. Almost everything has shifted to online. My choir, it's not as satisfying online. I'm tired of that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I'll be glad when I can do those things in person.
Right. Right. You mentioned something about, and I'm not sure what you were getting at, but about social media. And are you doing less? Are you online less? Is that what's?
A little less, yeah. I'm finding it really dispiriting, social media. I know everybody else is too. Um, and after being such a big promoter of it for for my purposes, if you have social media, for me, it comes in two baskets. One is kind of private, small groups on Facebook or
Mhm.
whatever, and the other is book promotion. I'm a content marketer. The subversive copy editor, through my blog and social media, has always just been content marketing, and it's been successful. I'm happy that my sales have not really declined over time, and I think it's because of social media. But um, but I but I've started to doubt. I don't know whether the algorithms have changed. I don't do the kind of research. I don't go into the analytics. I never, in spite of my 4 years in marketing, I know nothing about marketing. I was surrounded by experts who took care of, they never let me near the numbers. Like, don't show Carol any numbers. It cannot come to any good. So, but I feel like, just take Twitter, where I feel like that was my strongest platform. I see the same names, like 12 names all the time. And I feel like I'm just marketing to 12 people. Um, and and I'm not sure, I don't understand where it goes, or how it works. And
Hmm.
I don't have the same confidence that I did. And then, of course, we all see all of the harm and misinformation and
Right.
chaos that social media is causing. And it makes me think, this is what I think. I think whenever people talk about the world either being in decline or not, I'm always the Pollyanna. I'm always, no, it's not really, it's not in decline. And I still believe that. I still believe social media has done more good than harm,
Uh-huh.
and that technology in the end will do more good than harm. I think the harm comes in moments of transition, when we've got hold of a new toy and we don't know how to control it or contain it or channel it more for the good. And this, you've seen it happen where people would just be so alarmed at the invention of television, how it's going to ruin the children, and they'll all be brainless, and maybe some people would say that proved to be true, but um, but but we definitely are in a transition, a very scary transition with artificial intelligence and the kinds of manipulation you can do with media that I don't know, how we're going to come out the other end, but I choose to be hopeful.
Well, and like you, I think that we can learn and deal with it. I think we're in a point now where we realize there's a lot of damage, a lot of bad inherent in what is essentially a good thing that lets us all talk to each other. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we figured it out. We can have be less about manipulation and more about communication. We have a question from the audience for you. First one.
Okay.
Heather, who's up here next?
This question comes from Molly. Molly, if you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Oh, how exciting. Wasn't planning on that. Well, yeah, I happen to know another children's author and who came over to visit me, and she had my daughter and my niece at the time, who were like 12, be some of her test readers, her beta readers. And so she came over to meet with them. It was really cool. And then she found out when she was visiting us that I was a copy editor. And that was her comment was, oh, I hate copy editors. They're so nitpicky. And so I was just wondering if now that you're on the other side and you're the author, not the copy editor, has that changed how you feel about copy editing? I mean, obviously you know exactly what the purpose and the usefulness of copy editing is, but has it affected how you feel about us?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I
You
have.
can be honest here.
Well, I've been.
It's a safe space.
Yeah, no, I've been copy edited. All my books have been copy edited, and I felt really privileged so far to have been published conventionally, which meant that I didn't have to pay for copy editing and proofreading. Although for the subversive copy editor, although I had it put in my contract that the press would pay for proofreading, which is not usual for University of Chicago Press, I also hired a proofreader and proofread it myself. I mean, I'm a total believer that the more eyes, the better. I'm always grateful when someone will read my work and criticize it. When I was young, I was sensitive to criticism, but I have a very thick skin. I use every single thing that someone comments when they read my work, even if it's off the wall wrong, I use it. I have to respond. If someone thinks it's wrong, other people will think it's wrong. And, maybe sometimes I go from bad to worse, but I'm always grateful for the chance to zero in on an issue and fix it. So, and part of what I do now, although I don't do paid gigs speaking to editors anymore, because I feel like even though I keep up with the editing world because I blog about it at Shop Talk, I don't keep up with the practice. I don't keep up with the technology. I don't write about the technology. I don't feel as though I can present myself as an up-to-date working editor. So I've segued to speaking to writers about the benefits of copy editing. And so I'm just a cheerleader for that. And I explained to them why getting all those criticisms really doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how good a writer they are. It's more about making them internally consistent and also consistent with the style manual. And I explained what the Chicago Manual of Style is and how most agents or editors who are going to read their work will, appreciate a well-prepared, polished manuscript, especially editors who are going to end up hiring freelancers to clean up a big mess and whatever. So I help steer them toward some tips that will help them make their submissions more attractive. And so I'm still gung-ho for copy editing.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad we haven't lost you.
Thanks, Molly, for that question.
Thank you.
Yes, and if anybody, if other has uh, other questions, please, share them in the chat, and we'll ask Carol if she cares to answer them. I am curious about how, what about the previous evolution? I mean, you're kind of the editor's editor. You're a person who has her finger on the pulse of the community, and has done, but you didn't start out that way. So how long, when did you start as an editor? Was it at University of Chicago Press? Is that how you started?
No, I started at TV Guide magazine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was when it was in Radnor, Pennsylvania. I was living in Swarthmore, outside Philadelphia, and that was my first job. I had the choice of 3 jobs, in fact. That was the day, when you could get a job. I had to choose between being an assistant, kind of probably proofreader of a cookbook company,
Oh.
or a library assistant in the Jane Addams collection at Swarthmore College. Did I say Swarthmore University a while ago? Swarthmore College.
We can rewind and.
Oh no, I said Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. Okay.
Right.
And then this researcher position at TV Guide. So researcher copy editor was what they called it. And so a lot of it, people might not know that TV Guide used to be a really popular magazine. It was the most popular magazine in the United States. 20 million was the circulation, 20 million readers, okay? And the center part of it was a magazine. There were TV listings, which didn't come out of our office. I was in the editorial offices. The TV listings were done, on cheap paper in local offices and stuck onto the magazine. Mm-hmm. So we had, everyone wanted to write for TV Guide. Politicians, movie stars, novelists. I copy edited Isaac Asimov. People wanted to be in TV Guide, and we had to, so there was a very high editorial standard. So the researchers, 6 of us, all young women, we had to double check every hard fact and write down the source for the double checking of it. And so we would have to, even things we thought we knew, you had to write the source. If it said Paul Newman's eyes were blue, you had to call up Paul Newman's publicist and say, I'm just checking for TV Guide.
They changed.
Yeah. And TV Guide, we did a lot by phone because we didn't have computers. I had a typewriter.
Right.
I know.
Right. There's no Googling Paul
No.
Newman.
Well, we had Facts on File, which was this huge reference work that every week, weekly, the librarian would get in the mail new sheets that she'd take out the old sheets and put the new sheets in this binder, so it's the up to the date, up to the minute, well, up to the week facts. Yeah. And then we'd phone people, and boy, that was just a golden ticket to get, say you're calling from TV Guide, and they'd put you right through. Oh. And so unfortunately, I didn't make the most of it because I've never liked talking on the phone. I've always been really shy on the phone, and I was just getting the hang of it when I left that job. But yeah, it was just that was when I got my first Chicago Manual of Style, and I took it home, and I just couldn't put it down. It was I really loved reading it, and that was all. That's what I still tell people who wonder if they would make a good copy editor. I say, read a style manual and see if you enjoy reading it, because if it just makes you hyperventilate, then no, it's probably not for you. But for some reason, some of us are just fascinated by that kind of, you know, like whether you capitalize the president or not.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed learning that, and I loved the journalism aspect of it. In fact, I developed an ambition to write for magazines, and I wrote one article for TV Guide that they accepted, and then I left actually to have my first child. I left the workforce, and I stayed home with my children for 7 years, and I always kind of wonder. I do regret not having a career in journalism. I think in some ways I might have kind of ended up doing something similar to what I did anyway, on the editorial end, but I might have really enjoyed writing, and who knows? In a way, the blogging also might have been a similar outcome to journalism. I always thought when I was younger, it would be wonderful to have a sort of column, you know, like Mary Schmiesch does, or, you know, to be a belletriste. And, you know, blogging is very like that. You can write what you want, when you want, and if you're lucky, people read it.
Well, and I was going to say, you do nonfiction, journalistic somewhat in the blog. Have you thought about doing, you know, I mean, you're enjoying writing. Have you thought about writing some nonfiction for a magazine?
Oh, for a while I did. Do you know Mary Roach? Her books.
Yeah.
She was a former copy editor, and years and years ago, when her first book came out, I don't remember which her first one was. I loved reading it, and I thought, oh man, you know, you don't have to actually have gone to journalism school to do that kind of research. And I've you know, just by copy editing scholarly books most of my life, I know how research gets done. I know how to handle sources. I really feel like I could do that if I wanted to, but I haven't been inspired to. And in some ways, I think a project like that, you really need to have be passionate about something that would keep you engaged. And I'm more superficial, so I'm easily distracted.
Well, that's fine.
So I think I wouldn't have the focus or the time. Time's running out. I'm getting old.
You're forever young. Your degree wasn't in journalism then? What was your?
Oh no,
yours?
it was in Latin.
Latin. Well,
that was my first degree, and then I did a degree in classics. So I did Latin and Greek, and not like Mary Norris. I couldn't. I mean, that was long ago and far away. I studied a lot of languages, but unlike Mary Norris, I don't know any of them. I mean, I'm not. It took me. I've probably done 20 years worth of language study, not English. I've never studied English, and to no avail. It took me that long to figure out I'm not good at it. I always thought I had a flair. I had a flair for languages, so I just take another one, and I don't. So there you are.
Do you read some? Can you read in?
I can read French and Italian. You know, if it's like a business email or something, I can make sense of it usually. I wouldn't read a novel in either one for pleasure. It would be too hard for me. And I can converse, you know, like a tourist in French and Italian, but really badly. Like I don't do tenses. I don't do, you know, moods. Right. I don't get the articles and the, you know, masculine, feminine. I'm just all over the place, really, really bad, blabbing away. But just terrible.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've been learning Spanish all my life, and you know, I just started doing Duolingo. My daughter and my wife are both doing it, so but it's really basic. I mean, at this point, it's all, you know. Yesterday I had, you know, which is people. and it has 4 pictures, and it's uno, dos, tres, and personas, and I figured it out that it was the last one there. But that's how basic it is now. But you should do that. You should get the Duolingo app, and
Oh yeah, I've been there for sure.
yeah. I'm not sure
But
if I'll ever learn
that's
anything.
so great that you can, if you're in your household, you have 2 other people to talk to.
Yes, that's true. We haven't started talking yet. I once took lessons from um, some of us at the newspaper in Grand Rapids took lessons in Spanish lessons over lunch, and we had somebody come in. It was great, and I felt so bad because I had her. We had a big party every year, a big bocce tournament, and I had her. The teacher, and she brought her mother, and her mother came over and introduced herself, and I couldn't think of anything to say to her, and I felt so. And her daughter was behind, just looking mortified that her student had failed to even say hello in Spanish. So I had a lot on my mind.
So you do bocce and shuffleboard?
Well, yeah, the shuffleboard is. Yeah, I mean the bocce goes back. We used to have a tournament in Grand Rapids when we moved it to Columbus when we moved here. So I think we did like 15 or 16 years straight of a big. We had over 100 people at some of these
Wow.
things. They're huge. And then my daughter got married, and so we paused for the. We thought we should focus on the wedding that year, and we haven't gone back to it. But I am working on a bocce court in the backyard. Maybe by the time of Aces in Columbus, we'll have a bocce court that we can all play on. And then the shuffleboard. You and I played shuffleboard in St. Pete, which was great because it was against the AP style book. You were representing Chicago Manual, and oh no, you were on the same team, weren't you?
I think
Yeah,
we might have switched off
yeah,
into different pairs at
Okay.
different times. It was really fun though.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never played bocce though.
Okay,
Have to-
well, another reason to come to Columbus. All
Okay.
of you, please come to Columbus. We'll play bocce, my house. So I should pull out. I don't want my cord to get caught, but I got. This is my Saller section of the library here, and you've got the subversive copy editor, and then you've got the second edition, which I think, my wife said, well, why is it more subversive than the first one? It's a lot thicker, but I think it's just, bigger pages and bigger type, but it's also it is more pages. So what made you decide to follow up and write a second?
Yeah, well, I think the primary impulse was prodding from U of C Press for a second edition. Okay, it's time for a second edition. But I had been taking notes virtually from before the first one even came out of things that I needed to improve and things that I hadn't put in. When I published the first one, I hadn't been blogging. And after I started the blog, coming up with topics, by the time several years passed, I had a lot more to say that I had failed to put in the first edition. So I think the second edition is substantively more useful. It's and it has 2 more chapters, and I also expanded the chapter for writers. So what I mostly had left out was there's a chapter on sticklering, and there's a chapter on keeping up, because I think it's a primary sin of copy editors that they get their first job, they get trained, or they train themselves somehow or whatever, and they never revisit anything. They just don't read in their field like other experts do. They don't treat it as a changing job. They're slow to update their technology. They don't make use of the full benefits of their technology. They don't read about grammar. They don't read about language. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here because this is the online crowd, but yeah, so it's about keeping up, and it's a big hurrah for social media, which is, I do think, I have no doubts, I haven't changed my mind, that social media is one of the best ways to find out what's happening in a field and track down best sources and best practices for keeping up in it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, generally, and also the specifics of, one thing I find on Twitter, somebody will mention a particular usage question, and several people will jump in and say, "Oh, it's this way," and then somebody else will say, "Well, I mean, it's really a regionalism, or it's a false rule, or something like that." So you learn, if you pay attention, you learn the little things, as well as who are the people who are the voices of authority, and what are the tools and books people are reading. So I feel like I'm talking a little bit too much. So before I say anything else, I'm going to go to another question, because I think we have a few lined up from people
We
in the
do.
audience.
We have one from Alex. Alex, if you want to unmute, ask your question.
I had two, actually. One's just a little one. What were your first, in your first job at TV Guide, you said, and you got a hold of an edition of the Chicago Manual. So which edition was it?
Oh gosh, now you got me. It's 12th or 13th. I'd have to look at the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they were probably, I imagine they would have given people an up-to-date edition, although I don't know why I would assume that. Yeah, so I have so many. I'm looking up because that's where all my manuals are. I mean, I have them going back to like the 7th, but not because I ever used it, because I collect them. And so I don't know which one. I didn't get to keep it.
The 13th is 1982, so if we're talking the 70s.
It was the 12th then.
Well,
And
Yeah.
my second question, Carol, is did you ever copy edit a book that that caused you to make changes in your life? I've just been indexing some books that have just really struck me, and I keep thinking, oh, I should do something about this. And I wondered if that was true of any books that you ever copy edited.
Wow. I'm on the spot. I'm not good at this kind of question, and I wish I'll probably think of an answer. If I do, I'll email you. I mean, I'm sure there are books I've read that changed my life. I know that.
Yeah.
I can say the first one that changed my life was probably Ray Bradbury, reading one of his short stories, because I remember it being when I first thought, someone wrote this with really special care, and it's special sentences, and that's pretty exciting. Like the power of these sentences is a talent, and I would like to have that talent. I remember that kind of was one of the first books that set me on the path to aspiring to write. And then, Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, was like, whoa, it was like my head started spinning in 360 degrees when I read that. There have been a lot of books that have changed my life. But to copy edit one, I would have to just pass on that. I'm sorry. I'd like to hear what you about your experience. What did you copy edit that was so impressive?
Well, I'm also an indexer, and so there's two. One that I just finished, and one that I'm working on right now. One is about the legal ramifications of animals, whether they should be deemed persons to protect them or not. And I just found it fascinating, and it really made me start thinking about animals and all kinds of things. And am I going to change how I approach my life because of that book? And the other one that I'm doing right now is about waste, and it's just a really fascinating and depressing book, and just where we ship our waste and how far it goes, and really goes nowhere in the end.
Who's publishing that book?
The waste one, I think it's McGill Queen's, MQUP. Yeah, and it's quite particularly about Canada's waste.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll look for that. I just read an amazing book called The Invisible Woman about the gender data gap that is one of those like waste, like a huge, huge global issue that affects all our lives, and that I don't feel like I have the power to make changes in the gender data gap, but maybe I'd do better with waste. Yeah.
And probably a good thing with waste too, even though it seems like there's nothing we can do to really individually have much effect. But what was the I forgot to ask this. I meant to ask, what was the article you wrote for TV Guide? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was on the how states like Illinois or Ohio have film bureaus and how they make money for the state by courting film producers to come to their state.
Right.
And film, and it was sort of more specifically on how different locations substitute for more exotic locations that would be more expensive to film in. So you might right now I know a lot of films are shot in Canada, in Toronto for New York and stuff like that. So it was on state film bureaus, and it was a lot of fun to research. And the art that they did for the inside was a cartoon of, I don't know if you've seen that movie with Steve McQueen, the Hunter, where he goes off the Twin Towers, the corn cobs in
Chicago.
In Chicago, yeah. He drives a car off the 17th floor into the river. Yeah. I got to interview the people who made that movie about how they did that.
That's fun.
It was fun.
And this is I think this is the 8th edition. You said you had the 7th edition of the
well, let me see. This is the oldest one I have, and it is
1925.
Well, what have I got here? This is the 7th. Oh no, this is the 8th. It says 7 editions have been issued. This is the 8th. So
mine says,
I've got the cover. Yeah, it's a little splotchy.
Yeah.
They're not easy to find. I wish I hadn't said anything, because now everyone's going to be competing with me for them online.
Well, you are in Chicago, so you have that. Well, I guess you're not going to used bookstores, but you do have a local advantage being able maybe to find. There are probably a few old Chicago manuals, or a manual of style, as it was.
Well, I live a couple of blocks from a Powell's, and I have found a couple there. But I think people didn't value them, so they didn't preserve them. And I think but even now, even though they're kind of rare, they're not valuable.
Right. Yeah. How much did I think I still have the price tag on this one.
Oh yeah, I bet I do too.
$14.50, also from Powell's in Portland.
Oh, I don't have a price on mine. I have something I can't read. What?
So I should probably move things along to make sure we get to all the questions really quick. I've called you in promoting this Carol Saller. We all know you as Carol Fisher Saller. Years ago, you told me I never used to be Carol Fisher Saller, and so what do you go by Carol Saller now? Is that
Anything you want to call me is
all right?
fine. Fisher's my maiden name, and I only started using it when I wrote Eddie's War, or maybe one of my earlier children's books. I just wanted my family, I wanted the Fisher family
Sure.
to be able to claim me. I did it, I just did it for them. I put it on the book, and then all of a sudden, there you are, you're a three-name person, and
It has a nice sound to it, Carol Fisher Saller.
I've never thought that.
Yeah.
I mean, having two names with ER at the end, I just don't think is a good look, but
Yeah. All right. CMOS or CMOS?
well, I have spoken too soon when asked that in the past, and heard from my colleagues. I have always said CMOS, and my boss in marketing says CMOS, but you have to ask every person, because I have learned Mary Lauer, who's the acquisitions editor in charge of the manual, says CMOS.
CMOS.
And Russell, you would have to ask him.
Okay, we'll have Russell on the show eventually. Russell Harper,
Yes.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, he'd be much better. He would have facts for you. He would have lots to tell you. I'm,
He's making it up, yeah. That's
just
okay.
making it up.
I've always said CMOS, but that's
CMOS, yeah. Not so much.
no.
Around the press, no. People, not, well, you'd have to ask, because I'm sure there are some who say CMOS, some who say CMS.
Oh, yeah, that's no good though.
The manual. A lot of us just say the manual.
Yeah, okay. And copy editing is one word. It's a subversive copy editor. It's 2 words. So that's a little
Oh, don't even ask me. There's a confession at my blog of the trouble I got in. Oh my gosh. I'd give anything to go back in time, in my time machine. Maybe I'll have my little girls go back
fix things that you regret. That's
to
great.
make this one word, copy editor.
Really.
Yeah, it would save me a lot of trouble. Yeah. Well, the story is that when I wrote the book, I thought 2 words, copy editor, was Chicago style. And I didn't even look it up. I mean, I just knew it was Chicago style. Yeah. So when we were actually in page proofs, I was reading along somewhere probably in the manual, and came across copy editor, 1 word, and I just freaked out. Stopped the presses. I made a phone call. Stop! You have to pull the page proofs. Well, there was no way to do that. It wouldn't have been my call anyway. Right. And then it turned out that wasn't even actually true. It was that, I'm having trouble bringing the story back, but I'll tell you, this part of the story is true. Mm-hmm. Whichever way it was, I'm terminally confused about it now because of all this trauma.
Sure.
But when I figured out what I'd done and what I wanted, Russell Harper was in the middle of revising for the 16th at the time. And he went through and took out every mention of the word. So it would not be in there.
Wait, to save you the trauma?
Yes. There were only about 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
6 is not an insubstantial number. I mean, I know it's a big book, but
yeah. Okay. No, we don't, because we don't call them copy editors. We call them manuscript editors. Oh, there were a couple he couldn't take out because they were in book titles.
Well,
but
okay.
He did that so that it wouldn't be such a dramatic, conflict. But but then the word became one, really, in common parlance. It's one word, copy editor now, and I'm stuck with mine. So
yeah,
yeah.
I've still got the 2-word habit.
Well, I do it both ways, and then
Yeah.
people call me out. I try to catch that. I try not to have a blog post with both.
Right. Yeah. People will call you out.
Yeah, they do.
So we don't have any time left. We have some more questions though. What can we do in terms of questions, Heather, before we let Carol go?
We have one from Deanna wanting to know about writing. I think there she is. Deanna, do you want to unmute?
Yeah. I just, your talk about the evolution from writing Eddie's War at 11 words a day or whatever it was to completing a manuscript in 3 months is just sort of like, you know, bravo, and or brava, I suppose. And I mean, as somebody who's trying to reawaken my little inner writer, you know, I used to write like I breathe, right? And then I had kids. So, you know, you can stick a pin in that, whatever it is, because there's plenty of writers with kids out there. But in my case, that didn't work out. So anyway, what made the difference? I mean, is it just that you just did it that much more? I mean, because that, to me, 3 months for a manuscript, that's just bang on. And then also, I'm going to sneak a little extra in here. How's the brewery doing?
Okay, well, 3 months is the draft, and it's, you know, crappy. The 11 words a day was for the finished, you know, completely beautiful book. 2 very different kinds of things. Eddie's War is much higher middle grade, low YA, and I was going for a, you know, some people have put it on their poetry lists. It's prose in short lines. I never intended it to be poetry. I just never would go there. But it was intended to be, there's a genre of prose in short lines, lyric vignettes, I would say. They are, and so people do call them poems or free verse or whatever. And so they're more crafted. It is much more crafted. What I'm writing now is for younger, and it's plot-driven fun. So there's not a lot of subtlety in it. And I imagine that the draft is only for the purposes of submitting it to an agent, but I would expect to take a year at least rewriting it under direction, and then maybe another year having it critiqued and beta read. So it's you know, that 1,000 words a day is pretty rough. Although my rough, because of my practice, because I've been practicing, my rough is better than someone else's, someone who's just getting into writing. You know, it's better than that. It's pretty good, I think. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your writing. I'm a fan. We didn't. You were the Q&A editor, which Q&A just came out today. I hope everybody subscribes. They're great. You're on the mailing list for the Style Manuals Q&A. Some great stuff in here. We don't have any time to talk about it or ask you about it because we've reached our limit. So we'll have to have you come back to another hour and we'll get through some of these other questions. Oh, Deanna asked about the brewery. Your sons, your 2 sons both make beer in Chicago. Is that still?
Yeah. Burnt City, they're doing fine. Thank you for asking. They're doing fine. They just got fire pits and outdoor heaters. They have a big patio. They're making their Advent calendar beer. It's some kind of gift package you can buy of how many days are in Advent. It's a different beer for each day.
Yeah.
Burnt City. You can go online and look it up. Yeah, they're doing fine. Thank you. It'll be fun when you guys can all come back to Chicago, and maybe we'll have an ACES event at their, it's beautiful. The District Brew Yards is where they're located.
That's where we went, where they had the taster.
Where, yeah, it's touch screen, pour your own. It's a blast.
Yeah, it's very cool. All right. Thank you very much, Carol. Whoops. Whoa, stop. Darn thing. Technical problems all the time. Thank you very much, Carol Saller. Next week we have Linda Cass. We're going to ask her some of the same questions because we have a book, small bookstore owner, author and bookstore owner. We'll probably be talking to her about some of those marketing questions, and also we'll get to know about how an independent bookstore is managing these days. So hope you all come back in 2 weeks, October 20th, and thank you so much, Carol. This has been great being able to see you, not in person, but this way on video. So, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.